Hey, good morning, Pete, North Las Vegas. We are back out here again, waiting for the sun to come up. So while we're waiting for some light, for those of you that come to the channel once in a while and have been following this build, I've had good accuracy with it, and it has been reliable, but on the ejection, just barely. I was having some problems with the ejection pattern where at first the rounds were shooting almost straight forward, and a couple of the rounds actually hit the delta ring. So my first thoughts were, well, it's overgassed. So I took the standard carbine buffer out and put an H2 in, ended up with an H2. I went from standard to H1 to H2, and that made some improvement. I was getting around 130, 2 o'clock-ish maybe, more towards 130, but it was still, the ejection was inconsistent. There was just something not right. So after that last session, which was last week, I went home and I took this Wilson Combat bolt completely apart, and what I discovered was there was an out of spec ejection spring that was only 24 coils. And if you go to the M4 TDD package, that ejection spring, among some of its other specifications, is supposed to be 27 coils. So the ejection spring, as far as the technical data package goes, was not correct. So we are back out here today. I have put a correct 27 coil spring in here. It's a Springco. I know there's some controversy, some back and forth on how good Springco is or isn't, but anyway, that's all I had on hand, and that's what's in here right now. And maybe at a later date, maybe I'll update with a better spring, maybe see if I can find something from Colt. But anyway, that's what's in here right now, and that's why we're out here today, is to try and see if that spring fixes the ejection pattern problem. And if that doesn't work, I have a brand new WC that I just purchased. The one that's in the carbine right now, I purchased about a year ago. So while I was fixing that bolt, I thought, well, I'm going to take the bolt apart on this one and see what's going on. And sure enough, when I got the ejector plunger out and I looked at this spring, it too was 24 coils. So I'm like, okay, I just bought this one. The one over there is a year old, and they both have the wrong coil number. But I put a Springco in this one also, so we have the correct 27 coils in this. And just in case there's something else going on with the bolt in that one over there, like maybe the cam track's off, wasn't machined correctly, or something else that I can't see is going on, I brought this brand new one out, and we'll swap it out and see if that makes any difference, if I still run into trouble with that one. So if I don't know how many of you are familiar with the AR platform, but sometimes they'll put these O-rings underneath the extractor, not the ejector, but the extractor. And that's the extractor right there. And they'll put, sorry about the camera work, they'll put an O-ring underneath the spring also. So there's a spring, a little dampener cushion, and then sometimes they'll include the O-ring. And I think the O-ring was introduced, this is where I kind of fall short on my history, I believe the M4 when it came out, because they went to the shorter barrel, less dwell time, and some other things going on. They decided to incorporate that O-ring to give this a little bit more holding power on the rim of the cartridge. So in my case, what I'm doing here today, 16-inch barrel, semi-auto, I don't really think the O-ring is necessary most of the time. So I also took the O-ring back out of that bolt carrier. So I started off with no O-ring on the first testing. The second testing, the O-ring was on, and today no O-ring and the correct 27 coil spring. So let's quit yakking and see what happens. And I will say one thing about Wilson Combat BCGs, they're starting to come in very nice boxes. So they may or may not work, but they sure look nice. And we'll be using the same ammunition today that we've used the last 2 times, just to try to maintain some consistency. Okay, so I thought we'd talk about ejection just one last time. And your ejection pattern on an AR rifle is not going to be exactly same for every round that comes out of the receiver, and that's because these rounds are stacked on top of each other. And when they sit in a magazine, one will be off to the left a little bit, and one will be off to the right, and then you got your plastic follower. So ideally, you want your ejection pattern, for me, somewhere around between 3 and 4 o'clock. That to me indicates a well-tuned rifle. But like I said, especially on the last round is when the ejection pattern can change quite a bit from 3 to 4 o'clock. And that's because you have an empty casing, and there's no interaction on another round in the magazine. You have an empty magazine, so the only interaction would be the dummy round on top of the follower. So generally on an AR platform, your very last round comes out quite a bit differently than while you're actually firing the rifle. And so I just thought I'd kind of mention that. But generally somewhere between 3 and 4 o'clock is what I look for. So anyway, let's get to shooting. Okay, so no target today. We're just function testing. I kind of have a hard time trying to shoot for accuracy when I think a rifle or a carbine's having a problem. So we'll get that sorted out today, and then maybe we'll come back at a later date and try to do some iron sight accuracy. All right, let's see where the brass goes. Oh, that was encouraging. I'll show you the brass when I'm done with the last 2 rounds. Oh, perfect. All right. She is fixed. Okay, so I would say about 3:30 is where we're at. And I'll have to go back and watch the video, but I think that was the last round that came out. Like I was explaining, on the last round, they'll eject a little bit different when they're picking up rounds on top of each other on the magazine. But all right, so this mystery's been solved. And if anybody from Wilson Combat is watching this, fix your springs. Pete, North Las Vegas. Over and out.